Okay, we are back with another Between the Pages book chat. And today our guest is author Leslie Conzatti. Did I get your name right?
Yep.
Okay, because I forgot to ask there at the beginning.
That's okay.
Okay, and we're here to talk about her book, Princess of Undersea, and the upcoming series for that book, the Undersea Saga. And I'll let her introduce herself now. So take it away.
Thanks. So I am Leslie. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and Princess of Undersea is a book that I actually wrote 4 years ago, and it was my first publication. And I thought it was going to be a standalone, and so then I was writing other things. I was writing short stories. I've had short stories published in various anthologies and stuff. And then it was only recently that I decided that, wait, I could turn it into a series. So then I republished. So this version of Princess of Undersea is a republishing, and it's launching a whole series of fairy tale retellings. I'm really excited for it.
Oh, cool. I do love a good fairy tale retelling. I've got a few of those in short stories myself. So, give everyone a quick overview of the book, what it's about, what it's based on, stuff like that.
So Princess of Undersea is a retelling of The Little Mermaid. And basically what I wanted to do is I wanted to, well, actually it started out as a fan fiction. So I had it where it was a version of the story that kind of told, um, kind of repurposed mermaids and stuff, and kind of told more of the story of creating more of the relationships, like the relation, accentuating the relationship between the mermaid Elaine and her father, and the fact that her father wants to go to war against the humans, and he has grief with them. And but Elaine kind of more thinks that, well, maybe if we understood what the humans were like, maybe we would find out that there is a way to get along better than that and stuff. And so then she wants to convince her father that maybe just being angry and going to war is not the kind of the thing that he wants to do. She wants to be able to, communicate and have him listen to her, and he's just kind of ignoring her. Whereas on land, you have Prince Nathan, who is, the son of a king, and he's been kind of living his own life and enjoying the freedom to make his own choices, while also being constantly reminded that he is going to be king someday. And so he needs to get down, and he needs to start making those choices, and being more restricted, and he just doesn't want to think about that. And so then when you have these two characters coming together, it's it kind of Elaine coming to land and becoming human, and walking among the humans, um, finds out about this kind of a plot to take over the human kingdom, and she finds out that the humans are actually struggling and stuff. And so then she has to choose between um, going back to her life under the water, and returning to her mermaid life, and trying to solve things that way, and staying and helping the humans, and trying to foil the plot to save them.
Oh, that sounds interesting. So, obviously, it was inspired by The Little Mermaid, but was the inspiration more of the original fairy tale or more of the Disney movie?
Well, it was a little bit of both. There were the hallmarks. So I kind of, because of course the ending was the biggest thing. The ending of the original fairy tale is kind of a downer, and like the whole thing. But I really liked some of the imagery that it used, and like the lore that it used and stuff. And so, whereas there were parts of the that Disney kind of changed to tell their story, and it had a happily ever ending, happily ever after ending and stuff. And so then it was like, well, we can't really have that kind of a thing. And the whole concept of the line that I always come back to from the Disney version, I'm 16 years old, I'm not a child, was like, wait a minute, yes, you are, kind of a thing. And so I wanted to bring out more of a maturity in my mermaid character, whose name is Elaine. Um, I wanted to bring out more of Elaine's maturity, but the fact that she hasn't been really recognized by her father as anything but something that he can use, because she has a magical singing voice, and so he uses her magical singing voice to get like other people on his council to follow his lead and do what he wants. Whereas she's just like, I want to be able to communicate to him, communicate to my father. I'm not just something to be used by him, but I can actually help him and be a comfort to him and actually have a voice and have the agency and stuff. So it was kind of a little bit of both, but also kind of putting my own spin on things and like adding different side characters. Like there's a like she has a godmother character, Naidia. Elaine has a godmother character, Naidia, who kind of steps in because her mother disappeared and stuff. And so that was a whole big thing. And so then she has a godmother character who's been just kind of taking care of her. And then Prince Nathan has the palace steward, Giles, who kind of steps in and is trying to encourage him to be more kingly, kind of a thing. And so they have side characters to kind of speak into their lives that kind of aren't really present in either the original fairy tale or the Disney version. So
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting dynamic, though, because you have the prince who's trying to get away from his responsibilities, and you have the princess, the mermaid, trying to convince her father to, I don't
yeah, step
recognize
up
her
and give her, yeah,
in
rely
more
on her more.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting dynamic. So tell us a little bit about the main character and what she like.
So Elaine is a she is um well, she's the only child of the royal family, and like her mom disappeared in a hunting accident. Like she was out hunting with the group, and like they got they came back with the report that she was dragged away by a fishing boat. So like nobody knows, there's a whole big mystery, nobody knows if like she's dead or not, like, but like they don't talk about her, like the whole subject of her mother is like almost taboo and stuff. And the only one that like tells her anything about her mother is Nayidia, her godmother, who is just the kind of the one that um Elaine talks to the most and kind of encourages Elaine's fascination with the human world, because um like more and more as Elaine grew up and got older, her father kind of got harder with his restrictions, and so he has a boundary that he set up that no merfolk can pass this boundary, kind of a thing. um and it's patrolled all the time, but Elaine's constantly trying to go through it, and apparently Nayidia has the ability to just go and come and go as she pleases. She's never caught or anything, and Elaine's kind of envious of that. But yeah, so then that curiosity has always been um encouraged by Nayidia, but like she's never had an outlet to have that before, kind of a thing. So Elaine would be kind of like she's curious, but she's also kind of aware of her surroundings and stuff, and she watches out for things. But it's like, so the whole point of her becoming human was more just to get that recognition from her father, not necessarily like, in the fairy tales to like find love like it's not for love, but just she sees it more as like a strategic move to find this human whose life she saved. Because I do have that kind of a scene in there where she saves the life of a drowning human, kind of a thing. And she wants to find him because she thinks that if they can find him and talk to him, or get him to share what things are like in the human kingdom, then maybe she can help her father see that, hey, just going to war and assuming all of these things about the humans is not the way to go.
Okay. So, obviously, there's a little bit of the characters at war with themselves and trying to define themselves. But are there
Mm-hmm.
any antagonists, external antagonists in the book as well?
Um, there is there, so it's kind of somebody from Elaine's past who's kind of got connections to the human kingdom. I don't want it's a big reveal, so I don't want to spoil it too much.
Yeah, we don't want
But
spoilers.
but yes, so this character from the past, so that was one of the things that I had a lot of fun with, that like I came up with later. But the fact that it's like it's not a it's a sea witch type of character, and who knows like magic spells and stuff like that, and makes potions and stuff, and has a beef with the king, um Elaine's father, and stuff. And so then this sea witch that is has connections with somebody, with a human, like brokered a deal kind of a thing in sometime in the past. And so then that's kind of what connects things to the what then happens with the coup almost in the human kingdom, kind of a thing, is just trying to take over kind of thing. It's all kind of connected. There is a network. But
Sounds
yes,
like there's intrigues in the palace.
there is very much intrigues. It's a lot
Okay,
of
so what was the hardest scene in the book for you to write, or type of scene?
fun. Hardest scene. I would say that the connecting all the scenes was harder than writing the scenes themselves and stuff, and especially as writing it like a fan fiction. I like with a fan fiction, you can kind of create your own chunks and kind of start scenes wherever you want and end them wherever you want. And the reader can just assume the connection between one scene and another and stuff. It doesn't have to be very linear and all of that. So then taking that fan fiction and, first of all, taking out all of the references to the copyrighted material that I couldn't use anymore, and trying to figure out substitutes that I could then go back and use, if, as its own, in its own right, kind of a thing. Um, and like the foreshadowing and stuff was had me stumped for a good long while for a lot of things. Like some things I was like, okay, so then this can happen right before this, and this is how they get to here. But then there were other things that I was like, okay, so in this scene ends here, and this scene picks up here. So how do I fill that gap? And so that was kind of the part that stumped me the most, and I just had to be thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it until I could go back and finally write it in.
Yeah, that foreshadowing gets you every time, doesn't it?
Oof, yes. And especially because especially as a standalone, because it was a standalone at first, I didn't have to do any like foreshadowing at all of things. Like I could just contain the foreshadowing to everything that happened in the book. But then when I going back and trying to write it as a series and turn it into a series, I I had to all go back and then add even more foreshadowing that relates to like the entire arc of the series, the whole arc of the series, that had to all be put together and stuff. And so that was tough in itself to go back to something that I'd already written and finished and published, and rewrite it again, almost.
Yeah, I know how that feels. I rewrote a couple of the short stories for the new series, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's harder than actually writing it.
Because your brain is like, wait, we already thought about this. We already figured this out. Why are we doing this again?
Okay, so what was your favorite scene to write?
My favorite scene, huh? There were a lot of scenes that I really, really like. I think probably my favorite scene was the part that kind of, oh yes. So my favorite scene was the part where the Elaine and Nathan are talking, and the light kind of goes on for Nathan, and then he has this series of realizations that kind of work together to you think it might be solving things, and then something happens and it actually doesn't quite solve it, so it comes later. But the things that they talk about and the way that the conversation flows. I remember when I first wrote it, I had ideas of what was going to come out, and then but it didn't quite happen the first time the way that I wanted to, but I kind of left it because I didn't want to keep pushing at it and nudging at it and nudging at it. Um, but then this second time going back through it, I was like, oh, wait, they can say this and kind of a thing. And so one of the things that came out in that conversation was a line that I had inserted with a conversation between Elaine and Nydia when they were talking and stuff. And Elaine's complaining about how her father's using her and how she doesn't feel like he cares about her at all and everything. And the Nydia makes a comment about the concept of power and wisdom, and how those having power and having and being wise is kind of like a balance that you need, kind of a thing. And so then later when she's talking with Nathan, then she brings up, she kind of hears how he's talking about his father. And so then she's like, well, what about this? Like, do you think that your father wise, or is he powerful, kind of a thing? And she starts asking about like that balance, and it kind of gets him thinking about like, oh, wait a minute, like my like he kind of starts figuring things out and putting two and two together, and that ultimately brings them back to Giles, who then can be like, okay, so here's what we can do about it, kind of a thing, and kind of helps Nathan along, and also helps Elaine see what was lacking in her father's leadership and how important it is to have that balance that she was talking about.
Cool.
So,
So, with your secondary characters, are any of them a little quirky, steal scenes, stuff like that?
well, that was the funny thing about Giles, is I didn't think that he was going to be such an important character, because so back when I was writing it as a fan fiction, I just thought he was going to be like, I actually named him Sebastian Grimsby because I was kind of basing him on a combination of those two Disney characters. Like, so the uptight, aloof Grimsby, the butler character, and like the neurotic, really just anxiety ridden Sebastian, kind of a thing, and stuff. And I just thought that's what he would be. That's the kind of character he would be. He's all focused on Nathan, and he's absolutely just trying to get him to be the king that he needs to be, and stuff, and all of that. And just like everybody's ignoring Elaine, basically, because she's new, she speaks with a stutter and stuff like that. But then he came onto the scene, and he was kind to her, and he was noticing her, and he was kind of being that observant person, and just very noble and very responsible, that I named him Giles, and I was like, and this is the character that he's gonna be, because I was just like, it completely changed the dynamic, but in a really good way, because I could see how the way that Giles was behaving was kind of also subtly encouraging Nathan to behave, to pattern his behavior after what he saw in Giles. And so that was cool.
Okay, so you obviously write fantasy, um,
Mhm.
but have you ever considered doing any other genres?
I have, and that's the benefit of short stories, is because my short stories, I've done short stories in like sci-fi genre. Um, I've done steampunk. I've done a whole. It's kind of a way that I can kind of dip my toes in and dabble in these different um, these different genres that I enjoy reading, but without like having that be my entire focus. And so I have written like different short stories in other genres and stuff, and kind of tried them out and tried them on, kind of a thing. So, but for novels, it's mostly just fantasy, because that's the easy one for me.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here for today, and I'll let you tell the viewers where they can find you and your books.
Okay, so on Facebook, my author page is called Leslie Conzatti, the Upstream Writer, and that's also the name of the Upstream Writer is also the name of my blog. I have a blog that I run, that I post, serial stories and reviews of indie books, and updates on like what I'm writing, and different ideas that I'm coming up with and having and stuff like that. I have an author page on Amazon, which is where you can find a listing of all the books that I have available and published, and the anthologies that I've been published in. And yeah.
Okay, so go out and check out her book because it sounds wonderful. And thank you for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Welcome. You too.
And between the pages, we'll be back tomorrow with another author. So tune in then. Bye for now.
Bye.